As wildfire smoke impacts air quality across the region, Beloit Health System reminds residents to take steps to protect their lungs.
Dr. Joseph Kidda with Beloit Memorial Hospital says hot temperatures, humidity, and smoke particles can create dangerous conditions, especially for people with asthma or other breathing issues. Kidda recommends avoiding smoke exposure by staying indoors, use air conditioning, and paying attention to warning signs like trouble breathing or wheezing.
He says poor air quality can also affect anyone, even those without a known lung condition, and encourages people to check in with their doctor if symptoms continue after getting away from smoky conditions.
And even after this weather is over, touch base with your physician, go to your primary care doctor, and just report to them, because sometimes this may alert us to something that is going on within you. As we live the life and get older, things happen, we change, so those are the things that should clue us in as to what is going on with our bodies.